Welcome back, true believers and spectacular Spidey fans, to another really interesting and very in-depth Spider-Man PS4 related video. Now, before I even begin, just again, I already made a video yesterday about this, but if you didn't know, my channel has reached over 2,000 subscribers in a full year, because in exactly 1 year, on June 13th of this year, from June 13th of last year, I have been doing YouTube as a full-on occupation for a full year, and it's because of all your support. And again, I didn't really get to express this in my last video, but again, it is because of you I am here being able to do these videos for you guys, continuously trying to keep the hype train going for this game, because I do genuinely believe that this game will change my life as well as a lot of other important Spider-Man fans' lives out there who just passionately care about this character, like you viewers out there who just watch these videos for Spider-Man PS4 and just the Spidey Squad just supporting me any chance you get. Just thank you so much. It means the world to me, and I would be nothing without you guys. Which is why I wanted to give you my first ever fully in-depth and analytic Spider-Man PS4 video that I will be discussing. Now, this is not part of Spider-Man PS4 101. If you saw my last video, which I will leave in the description, I told you guys I would be doing a series called Spider-Man PS4 101, which is going to be a series where I'm talking about the hidden things that is involved with the specific gameplay demo that we got for Spider-Man PS4. This particular video is not part of that series because it's not really a breakdown of anything. This is just kind of analyzing and going in depth on what is going on in the game, specifically for the web swinging segment of the demo, which in total was about 2.5 minutes long. After the crane scene with the quick time event, it cut right into swinging for Spider-Man PS4, and can I just say, this game is amazing with how it handled the seamless transition from a fully fledged quick time event into full-on gameplay of swinging. And that wasn't a cutscene either. The gameplay with him swinging wasn't a cutscene. The quick time event wasn't a different cutscene with the graphics. Those are the same graphics from where you were fighting the inner demons, and then it switched to the quick time event, and then it cut right into the swinging, which is fantastic. And I love that seamless transition from the gameplay to the cutscene to the set piece to the swinging where you can go around the city. And like they said before, in interviews, which if you guys saw, I don't really want to get too in-depth because I'm going to be doing a really long video discussing about every single new piece of information from Insomniac games and Marvel games in regards to Spider-Man PS4, like what is going on with the swinging, the fighting, the story, the graphics, you know, stuff like that. That's all going to be covered in a whole nother video, so don't worry. But mainly for the swinging, it's that Insomniac games want it to be real, because it is. And then they said on their Twitter page, it's physics-based swinging, which means it's real, it has gravity and momentum to it, and the webs stick to buildings that you just have to, you can't not clap when you hear that the Spider-Man game is having webs that stick to buildings. I mean, that was already given with the trailer, but still, having them confirm it is awesome. Because like Beanox, when they false advertised The Amazing Spider-Man 2, they said that, yeah, your webs can stick to buildings, when clearly you can obviously swing through Central Park in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that obviously can't happen in reality unless certain games, which I will mention later on, can do that. But what I'm trying to get at is that this video is mainly about the web swinging. The web swinging is all we're talking about in this video because of how I was looking at people's reactions and audience reactions and people analyzing the gameplay and breaking down the stuff. Individuals to shout out, Venom 2 Million and The Amazing Lucas. The Amazing Lucas is a really awesome YouTuber. He really does make awesome Spider-Man PS4 videos when he does make Spider-Man PS4 videos. And you guys all know Venom 2 Million, and yeah, he can be very critical at times, very, very critical at times about certain Spider-Man PS4 games, especially this one. And they gave their thoughts on it, and now I'm giving mine, and also proving you analytic evidence and facts from the E3 interviews that we got from Insomniac, clarifying a couple things for the swinging. But before I get into that, we are going to break down every single free-roaming Spider-Man game that has come out in the past, comparing it to this one. Now, in total, for Spider-Man, there have been a total of 6 free-roaming Spider-Man games. Now, I will only be talking about the free-roaming Spider-Man games, not the linear games like the Spider-Man 1 Tobey Maguire movie or Shattered Dimensions or Edge of Time, because those are linear, which means they're level-based, which means you can't swing freely around the city. You can only just kind of swing around the certain levels that you're able to do levels in. So mainly for this video, we are talking about the 6, because there are only 6, believe it or not, free roaming Spider-Man games, not including Spider-Man PS4. If you do include Spider-Man PS4, that means we have 7. But mainly, the ones that have released, there have been 6 free roaming Spider-Man games. Now, I'm gonna save what everyone says is the best for last. For me, I don't think it's the best. I have another favorite. But since everyone compares this game as the best Spider-Man game, we're gonna save the obvious one for last. You all know what I'm talking about. But mainly, we're gonna start with one of my personal favorites, Ultimate Spider-Man. This is my second favorite Spider-Man video game of all time, and one of the reasons because of that is the swinging. Now, cool couple things is that first off, Peter Parker is a teenager in this game. He's 15 years old in Ultimate Spider-Man, the video game. This game came out in 2005, a year after Spider-Man 2 came out in 2004, and it was a great game. Not only did the web stick to buildings, but what I just mentioned where Peter was young, it's because since he's so young and he's kind of not as big and as an adult as Tobey Maguire was in his games, is that you felt lighter when you were swinging around. And also, they kind of used a couple physics-breaking stuff with a double jump, but also it's because that you're a smaller kid. You're scrawny, you're thin, you're muscular, and you can swing freely and lightly. It feels very light when you're swinging. That doesn't feel there's any weight to it because of how flawlessly the flow is when you are swinging through the city. You can also spin a web. You can climb up the web by pressing triangle if you're playing on PlayStation 2. And then you can press square to get a boost when you web swing, which is such a cool mechanic in that game, and it uses that mechanic very well, especially when you are doing the Johnny Storm races in the game. Oh my god, those races were just so killer when I played that game as a little kid. Jesus, those races took me almost probably full days or weeks to beat because of how hard it was. But mainly with the swinging, and if you use the double jump properly, you can get massive boosts and massive heights when you swing from building to building, and you can also have a web zip mechanic that lets you either, depending on how you time it, you can go really fast forward or really fast upward, depending on how you time it, and also use your double jump, which is a very awesome mechanic to have in that game. And moving on, because of how amazing that game was with its swinging, we are moving on to Spider-Man 3. Now, I understand a lot of people hate this game, or don't even like this game, or they don't even play this game, or have played this game because of how just they say it's an awful game. For me, I like it, I don't hate it, but there are some good factors in the swinging. And oddly enough, you just have to learn how to actually control the controls. You have to actually learn how to control Spider-Man, you have to learn how the controls work, and you have to learn how the swinging works. Because even though this game does have a double jump, you do not really use that when you are swinging. You mainly have to time your swinging, your sprint button, and your charged jump all at once, because that is something that Ultimate Spider-Man did not have, which is kind of sad for me, and I really hope it's in Spider-Man PS4, is that there was a sprint button. Sprinting is such a cool feature to have in a Spider-Man game. It's just that more impactful when there's a sprint button. And Spider-Man 3 was actually the last Spider-Man game to actually have a sprint button feature as a gameplay mechanic. And it shows because of how Spider-Man 3 tried to do what Spider-Man 2 did, and it did because of how the webs did stick to buildings. It was kind of physics-based because of how the momentum was kind of there, but when you swung, it almost felt like that there was kind of like not as much heavy weight or momentum when you're going on. You did feel light when you were swinging. As a good comparison, when you're playing Batman Arkham Knight, for example, I'm using Knight, not City or Asylum, because of how Knight is the most recent Batman game. So basically, when you're playing Batman Arkham Knight, and when you're running as Batman, and fighting as Batman, and gliding as Batman, and driving in the Batmobile as Batman, you feel like a tank mixed with a train. You feel so heavy. Not only is that great because of how Batman's wearing that giant heavy bat suit, and also because of how grounded it feels, it also tries to make the player feel like you are Batman in that scenario, where yeah, you're driving the Batmobile, and then you can seamlessly switch out from that into a glide, and then dive bombing, you feel really heavy. Whereas with Spider-Man 3, you feel light, and then also you could use tricks. You had aerial stunts that you could use as part of the swinging, which actually gave you a boost forward when you were swinging forward, which is what you were supposed to do when you were swinging to get a better boost, is that you could use tricks. You could use air tricks to use when swinging. Not a lot of people know about that because they just kind of overlook that feature, but the swing tricks are actually very important within that game's gameplay mechanics. And I actually do like the swing in there. For me, I'm a pro. That's the one thing I can brag about, guys, is that if you've seen my Web of Shadows radioactive replay, seamless plug, I am very good at web swinging in Spider-Man games. I love web swinging in Spider-Man games, and my flawless rule is that you The only way that you should properly play a Spider-Man game is that if you play it with style. That goes for swinging, for wall crawling, for fighting, for everything. And that's the same thing with Spider-Man 3 and Ultimate Spider-Man, is that you can swing around with your webs, and then you can just cut into a wall run or a wall crawl, and then jump off the wall and seamlessly go back into swinging, which is exactly what Spider-Man PS4 did in the gameplay demo, where he was running across the wall, he zipped across the building, and he went right back into web swinging. That is what I like to see with the seamless transitions for web swinging to wall running traversal to back to swinging. So that's really a great feature that Insomniac put in that game, and that's something that Spider-Man 3 and Ultimate Spider-Man are actually pretty darn good at. And for my favorite Spider-Man game, which you all know by now, is Spider-Man Web of Shadows. This is my favorite Spider-Man game. From the combat to the story to the graphics, look pretty darn cool. And mainly for me, it's the swinging. Again, Spider-Man 2 is considered the god of Spider-Man games, but for me, it's Web of Shadows, and it's because of how you feel like you can go at Mach 5 when you're playing Web of Shadows. You can go so dang fast, and it's great because of how not only can you swing a web, you can climb up the web, and you can also use a boost, which before in Treyarch Spider-Man games, specifically relating to Spider-Man 3, L2 was your sprint button, X was your jump, or you could hold it to do a charge jump, and then R2 is swinging a web. In Web of Shadows, they combined the sprint button and the charge jump with X. So all you had to do in Web of Shadows was press and hold R2 and press and hold X to get a boost. If you hold X down, you could go really fast. If you hold it down longer, you can go really fast but go higher, which is a great feature and a great green gameplay mechanic to add into that game. And also with the wall running, you can go from the top of a building down on the wall crawl, go on a slide down the wall, jump off, and then zip up into a web swing. It's such a seamless, flawless, and free-flowing transition of swinging from that game's gameplay mechanics, and that's why I love that game, and that's why I think it beats Spider-Man 2. But continuing on with the free-roaming games, we have the first of Beanox's free-roaming Spider-Man games / movie tie-in games, which is The Amazing Spider-Man 1. Not really much to say about that one. The webs clearly go straight up into the sky, and they stick to the sky, and there was no momentum, there was no physics. It was I love The Amazing Spider-Man 1 more than The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but the swinging in the first one wasn't good. I'm sorry if you guys really love that game, I apologize, but you have to admit that the sky swinging is obvious. You can't really overlook that. It's straight up into the sky. It's not like it's tilted like The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was, where the web's kind of stuck to a building. It looked like it, but no, it was straight up into the sky. At least the web rush mechanic was cool, because you could zip to place and do a little bit of traversal and cool acrobatic movements while going there. It wasn't necessarily parkour, but it was a cool way to get around town. But for swinging, for the main portion of the swinging, it mainly wanted you to do more of a web rush type of traversal than an actual swinging traversal, because of how the web swinging itself wasn't that good in the first game, because they stuck to the sky. It wasn't fast. You only had to press one button the entire time. It was R2, R2, R2. You could even hold R2, and you could just keep swinging forward if you wanted to, which made it very boring. And then you just kind of had to try and mix it up with the web rush mechanic and the swinging. And really, it didn't work out in the end. I still love that game, but the swinging is not that good. Now, moving on to the one that everyone despises for some reason, is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. For me, personally, this game is decent. I like the first Amazing Spider-Man game more than the second one, but in terms for the swinging, the second one is a definite improvement over the first one. Not only did it feel really cool to switch between your hands with R2 to swing a web to the right and L2 to swing a web to the left. That was a really cool mechanic that Beanox decided to put in. Thanks to our dedicated Spidey Squad member Spidey Skater Boy for giving him that tip and advice. We also could make sure that you could do a slingshot, even though it did really not even come in handy. At least they added that feature of a slingshot mechanic in the swinging, which was pretty cool. And also you could use your web rush, which was much more improved in the second game. And you could also swing with a web from one hand and another hand with the left hand. And a cooler thing is that you could boost your web swing by pressing the opposite button. So if you're swinging with your left hand and you press the right hand button, then you can go faster when you're swinging, which is a great feature to do. However, though, when you swing, it seems like that there's some awkward, abrupt pause when you're swinging from you're going upward, stopping, going down, swinging again, or when you're trying to go straight, it doesn't seem like it flows too well. It seems like it's abrupt and it kind of cuts off at some points, and it's not really that fun. It just seems like a task you're trying to do. It doesn't even feel like a free open world. It kind of feels like you're in a small box that just has a lot of space, but not really like a free open world like Insomniac Spider-Man has, and what it looks to be gorgeous in a huge open world, which I'm going to talk about in another video. And mainly with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is this is the one everyone's comparing it to, with Spider-Man PS4's web swinging, and with The Amazing Spider-Man 2's web swinging. Everyone seems to be comparing that swinging to that game. But now we're going to get into the main one that everyone wants it to be, and I think Spider-Man PS4 is going to top this web swing as well as all the other web swings I mentioned, is Spider-Man 2. The god of Spider-Man games. As everyone says, it's the king, it's the best, it's the greatest movie tie-in game ever made. It's one of the greatest PS2 games ever made, or like that era of games where the PS2 and the first Xbox were out when Spider-Man 2 came out in those games, and also the GameCube. Everyone said that was the god of Spider-Man games. Everyone still does say it's the god of Spider-Man games. For me, I think it's Web of Shadows, but everyone else says it's Spider-Man 2. And one of the main reasons is the web swinging. It's realistic, it's fun, it's flawless, it's great. You've played that game. If you're a Spider-Man fan, I know you played that game, so you know just what I'm talking about when I say that web swinging is a giant gold mine of epic traversal epicness, and also just a great, awesome landmark in a feat that each game developer who makes a Spider-Man game in the future hopes that they can reach, is that game. So now that we've covered those games, I want to give you a couple insights on why the swinging seemed slow in the demo, but it really wasn't. So first off, kind of going in behind the scenes, Brian Intihar, who's the creative director of Insomniac Games for Spider-Man PS4, has flat out said that his favorite Spider-Man game is Spider-Man 2. A lot of other people in Insomniac also agree with that, but other people in Insomniac also have different favorite Spider-Man games. Some other say Ultimate Spider-Man or even Web of Shadows, but Brian Intihar's favorite Spider-Man game is Spider-Man 2, and if he's the creative director of the game, you better believe he's going to try and put Spider-Man 2 gameplay mechanics into that game. And also, what he said in an interview, he said there were two important factors for him to fully follow when making a Spider-Man game, is that to have a open world city and make sure that the webs stick to buildings. That is the most important factor that he was trying to put in the development for the actual gameplay, other than the story, but also the main gameplay aspects, is to have a huge city and also to have the web stick to buildings, which we're going to get in the game. But now mainly to the swinging. When Spider-Man, after he finishes that whole crane sequence, why does the swinging seem slow? A lot of people say, especially a couple of individuals who are complaining a lot about this game, keep indicating that the swinging is slow. It looks like The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This whole game looks like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, or it's The Amazing Spider-Man 3, you know, like... No. Flat out, no. This game is so huge and hugely dynamic and different from the other Spider-Man games that we've had in the past, and mainly because of how the swinging is so different. And also, you have to know that this demo takes place early in the story. They said in the interview that Peter is going after the Inner Demons because of how they're this new gang that's coming in New York City, and that you just took down Kingpin. That's why Kingpin is in jail. So that's why it's early on in the game, because if they said that you first go out after Kingpin and then you go on to move on to the Inner Demons and Mr. Negative, so it means that the game is early in the story. In the game's story, it's early on in the game with the progress, which means you haven't fully upgraded Spider-Man yet. And that's what they said when they were being interviewed, is that when you start the game, you are already an experienced Spider-Man, so you already have an experienced moveset of combos when you're fighting enemies and criminals, but you're not really trying to be experienced with your web swing. You can obviously upgrade that when you're going on. And what they said in interviews, that there's tons of upgrades going on, and is that also you can upgrade the swinging. Swinging is upgradable in the game, guys. Make sure you remember that, because that's a huge important factor. Not only is it upgradable, but you also have to look back to Spider-Man 2, guys. You did not remember this. In Spider-Man 2, when you first play the game, I want you guys, if you have the game, to go and play Spider-Man 2 from the start, from a new game. No new save data, just a flat-out new game, and start swinging. You'll see how slow Spider-Man is when you play Spider-Man 2 the first time. Again, on a brand new game, and that's how he is slow. And again, in Spider-Man 2, throughout the game, you got all these swing speed upgrades. It was like swing speed 2 and 3, and even during the story, a story mission on that to-do list, which you guys all remember on the to-do list for the Spider-Man 2, is that it wanted you to buy a swing speed upgrade to continue in the story. You could upgrade your swing speed, and you could go faster and higher, and, you know, do all these crazy acrobatic tricks and stuff, just like Spider-Man PS4 is doing, everybody. It's early on in the game. I would say it's maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours in the game. I'm not sure. You know, I don't know how long the story is going to be. But mainly with this story with Mr. Negative and Kingpin. Kingpin was the first villain to be taken down, and then you're going after Mr. Negative. So who knows how long that Kingpin story part of the game is going to be. But it means that it's early on in the game, and you can obviously upgrade Spider-Man and his powers in the meantime when you're playing the game. Again, he has web shooters, whereas in the Tobey Maguire movie, he had obviously organic web shooters. So in this game, he has web shooters. And also, I wanted to bring this up in another video, but I feel like it's important to bring it up here. They said Peter Parker is 23 years old and that he is a scientist. His job is a scientist, which means, you know, if he's working at Horizon Labs, who knows, I'm going to get more into that in another video. But mainly, he is a scientist, and he's smart. And he obviously created his own web shooters, which means he can obviously create more upgrades for it. You already saw the trip mine that we saw, the web trip mine, where he stuck that guy to the wall, and it was an automatic web, just like in Spider-Man Homecoming. And obviously, if he can upgrade a gadget for his web shooter, why can't he upgrade his web shooters to obviously make it go faster or higher? And obviously, what you see in the beginning of the swinging in Spider-Man PS4, after he saves the crane, he starts swinging. He goes slow. He goes after the helicopter. He almost hits the wall, and then he starts to wall run. Then, when he's going after the helicopter after he crashes through that Norman Osborn sign, you see him go faster. And also, he uses one hand to swing, which I thought was badass when he used one hand to swing, because obviously that's nothing we've ever seen in the Spider-Man game before, where he's just kind of swinging with one hand and then going back into swinging, unlike Web of Shadows, where Web of Shadows did that too, where he pulled a web with one hand, he did a cool iconic pose, and then just went swinging. That's why I love that game so much. But mainly with Spider-Man PS4, he shot a web with one hand, he swung with one hand, and while he's chasing the helicopter after he crashes through that hotel sign, he dives through it, and he's swinging faster, and he goes faster and faster and faster. He's building up his momentum, guys. He's going slow at first because of obviously he just saved the crane. He's in the air after he did that transition from the cutscene from the QuickTime event to the gameplay. He swung in the air, he did the spider pose, and then he started to swing. And he starts off slow, and he goes faster and faster and faster as you keep swinging. And obviously, when you continue the game, by the end of the game, you're probably going to be just like in Spider-Man 2 again, where you're freaking super fast and can go almost as fast as Mach 5 speed like you can in Web of Shadows, if not faster, especially if you know how to control the swinging. Because even though a lot of people say Spider-Man 2 is the greatest Spider-Man game ever made, a lot of people don't even know how to fully control the swinging because of how they always just slam into walls, or they don't know how to control the swinging properly. Unlike myself, where I totally know how it works. But also with Spider-Man PS4, it's just that this swinging is going to totally whoop Spider-Man 2's ass. I'm sorry, guys, for all you Spider-Man 2 fans. I know that's kind of hard to hear, but please, again, hashtag in Insomniac we trust. I promise you, they're not going to let you down with this game. The swinging looks absolutely stunning. Compared to the other 6 Spider-Man games we've gotten in the past that are free-roaming, this is the 7th free-roaming Spider-Man game that we have ever gotten. And just as you can see with the swinging and the parkour as well, but mainly the swinging in that brief 2-minute second period that we got, because you can't even judge it off a 2-minute second period. It's just, give it time, guys. Watch it again. Make sure that you're actually watching how he builds up his speed. And just remember, games have upgrades. Tons of games have upgrades. A good example of a game I'm actually replaying right now, Prototype. When you play Prototype for the first time, you start off with these powers, and then you can also upgrade them. When you start off, in the end, you can go at like Mach 5 speed when you're sprinting, and you can jump like 5-10 stories up, whereas at the beginning, you can only like hop a fence, and then you can only sprint faster than a car, but then at the end, you can sprint like faster than like 20 motorcycles, because that's how fast you can sprint in that game. So again, it's the same thing with Spider-Man. And the same with Sunset Overdrive as well. You had to go slow in that game because you're running on the ground. If you're on walls or in the air or jumping around, then you can go faster and jump higher and go all over the place and do all these crazy traversal aspects. It's the same thing with Spider-Man, guys. So again, reference Sunset Overdrive and Spider-Man 2 for the swinging, because of how just take a hybrid of Sunset Overdrive and Spider-Man 2 and blend it in with Spider-Man PS4, and that's the web swinging for you, and it's going to be absolutely crazy. I know for a fact they will not let us down with the swing. It's going to be absolutely insane. And just again, I've said already, but please just watch the clip again of him swinging. You'll see what I'm talking about. So that is it for this video, guys. Stay tuned for more awesome Spider-Man PS4 content to come, as well as a really awesome and important Spidey Squad related video for all you guys to be a part of. I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Peace out.